Matthew chapter 6 is all about serving God rather than money, not in addition to money. Philippians chapter 2 is all about Jesus leaving his eternal riches in glory to pursue and redeem humanity. Philippians 3 is about giving up everything for the sake of knowing Jesus. And that's where you guys are going to be in today's daily reading. If you want to grab that free weekly Bible reading plan on our website, you can go grab that. Also in today's video teaching, we touched on how the kingdom of heaven is like hidden treasure in a field or a priceless pearl that someone found. And if you didn't see that, you can go watch it. But we noted that these two parables are deeply connected, often much more than people recognize. It's about value and sacrifice, and weirdly enough, the man who finds the hidden treasure that's compared to the kingdom of heaven can be both representative of humanity and God. And I touched on that. And then the last thing we noted was that these two parables seem to be connected to the previous treasures in the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus refers to, as well as later on with the rich young ruler. So just a few application points for us as we process these scriptures today. It's very easy to highlight man's responsibility within the conversation on sacrifice and surrender. You know, whether it's going to Abraham and Isaac in Genesis 22 and talking about how Abraham had to be willing, Abraham had to trust, Abraham had to believe that God's promises ring true in the midst of his actions that seem to contradict the promises he received. And very quickly, man's effort can become the central focus of these passages. Our sacrifice, what we surrender, what we give up to God. But before we step into these moments and even seasons of tremendous sacrifice, we're called to remember God's sacrifice first. Before we can treasure the kingdom and God enough to give up anything in response to what he's done for us, we first have to understand that God first decided to treasure and value humanity to such an extent that he was willing to give up his son for our redemption. And not against the will of Jesus, but completely consistent with the will of Jesus. He willingly gives up his life. And so as we find ourselves in times of testing or opportunities to give up something for God, let gratitude drive that decision. Let a sense of appreciation drive your obedience and fuel your love for God. That's why Paul will talk about being compelled by the love of God. I think when we imagine the sacrifice God's going to call us to, the surrender we're going to engage in, it's easy to think, I'm going to have to do that, and it feels like nothing more than a sense of duty and obligation, and we're doing it because we're afraid, and I don't want to get struck down. And suddenly you have all these misconceptions driving what is an appropriate action, but it's not rooted in the right heart. And so just ask yourself today, and maybe throughout the rest of this week, what am I holding back from God? What am I not fully surrendering? What do I have trouble believing that God will handle, and I don't really trust him the way I do in these other areas of my life? For some of you, it's financially. For some of you, it's relationships. For some of you, it's your career. For some of you, it's the life that you've built for you and your family and your self-image. For some of you, it's your appearance and how you've always cared so deeply about others' perception of you. So just what is it? For some of us, it's like materially, video game time or Netflix time, or just the amount of time we spend mindlessly scrolling, or certain habits we have at night that we know really aren't good. What is it that you're holding back from God? And then ask yourself, what is the reason I'm doing that? Is it a lack of trust? Is it a sense of pride and entitlement? And then just throughout the week, practice surrender in a specific area of your life. It'd be best if you could practice surrender in that area you're having trouble in. So just ask God to help you sacrifice with a grateful heart, not just with a mindless kind of duty heart posture, but a sense of I'm deeply aware of how much God loves me, what he gave up for me, and it's his sacrifice that prompts my own. Right? Anything I do in response to God should not be sourced in me, but should be responsive. It should be, I see his love, I see his sacrifice, I see his character, and I value that the way that the parables of the the hidden treasure and the priceless pearl communicate. And because I value and treasure God more than anything, just like Paul in Philippians 3, I can say, I can give up anything and everything, and I will, for the sake of knowing Jesus, because nothing touches that. So go enjoy your day and be blessed.